Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view or listen of the day. If you have not done so already, sign up for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports. Anything I hear about BYU that I am feeling like I need to pass along, guess who the first people get to hear it? It comes to our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It comes in the form of a text message. It does not get much more direct than that. You're not having to go to a message board or having to log into a website to get the inside scoop. So join us today. It's Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Click the link in the show notes below, whether you're watching and or listening to this. Join today, 14-day free trial, and hope you guys will be a member of the Insider Group that we already have a really strong group of people already in there. So thank you for your support of those who are already there, and hopefully many more of you will be joining us in due time. All right. The week ahead for BYU is an important one because bye weeks are obviously critical for guys getting healthy. And we talked about it in the postcast edition of the show. The coming out of the Baylor game, I had a list darn near double digits in terms of guys who got injured, either were coming into that game injured against Baylor or got injured in the game and need time to heal up. Obviously, not all of the injuries are going to be, hey, 1 week, you're good to go, because it's football. It's a violent sport. And let's address that just for a moment. I had a couple of people after I put that tweet out on our Locked On Cougars Twitter account said that BYU, of course, leading the college football universe in injuries every single year. They're not leading. Here's the thing. Injuries happen in every football program. It's a violent sport, everybody. And if you think that BYU is going to skate through a season without injuries, you're up in the night. The nice part is a bye week arrived here for BYU where they can heal up a little bit. Remember, was it 2 years ago that they had a bye week? The bye week finally came like week 10 of the season, and it did no good. It was just a waste in many respects because that's so late in the season that guys have been kind of grinding through playing for 2+ months on bad knees, bad arms, bad shoulders, whatever they've got going on. At that point, it's tough. 5 weeks in, BYU gets a much-deserved rest this week. And I don't think BYU's atypical. And it takes some research to look at this and say, hey, how many injuries does BYU have? And that's the thing about this is without standardized injury reports out there in college football, it'd be a foolhardy thing to really try and track down. But I don't think BYU's atypical in terms of the amount of injuries. In fact, until the game against Baylor, BYU had been very injury-free relative to how physical of football they've been playing. Remember, BYU is the only 5-0 team who's beaten 3 fellow Power 4 members in that 5-0 start. They have played hard-nosed football essentially since the get-go of the season. They have been facing some really stiff competition, and injuries did pile up against Baylor. The nice part is they were healthy pretty much all the way up to that point. Are these minor injuries? Are they going to affect BYU going forward? That remains to be determined, but you got a full essentially 14 days to get guys right ahead of that Arizona stretch. And then you got to go through 3 more games. Then you get another bye week and a rest before the final stretch run of the season. I actually really like how the buys have worked out, and especially considering the injuries BYU dealt with in that Baylor game, this will be a very nice break for them. Other things that need to be worked on. Like I said, you need to rework that interior of the offensive line. Find the best combination of 3 guys. Whether that's Waylon Lapuaho having to go from left guard to right guard, maybe putting Bruce Mitchell out there at either guard spot, because at this point, I feel like Bruce is a starting caliber offensive lineman for BYU. He has been very good since that start he had against Kansas State. Does Austin Leusa come in? Does Jake Eichhorn come back? You got to figure out what you're doing on the interior of the offensive line. I also want to see what BYU decides to do at linebacker. With Harrison Taggart is unable to go, is it Cialia Sarah's job? Is it going to be Jack Kelly maybe sliding into the middle? You got to rework that a little bit depending on how long a guy like Harrison Taggart is out for here. And then also, I want to see what BYU decides to change up in their overall scheme. Now, they may be subtle things. They may not be glaring things that BYU changes going into that Arizona game. But if they're going to experiment with stuff, change maybe how they philosophically are going to approach defending the run, defending the pass, how they're going to go about in terms of the offensive attack, they're going to change stuff up. This is a critical week to do it. You've got 5 games of evidence and tape to look back on and say, okay, like that, don't like that, don't. And guess what? You have an opportunity now to kind of take a step back, use this week and say, okay, here's what's worked for us through 5 weeks here, guys. Speaking as if I'm one of the coaches at BYU, here's what we need to improve. And here's what we're going to attempt to do to change up and get better at X, Y, and Z here. That's the most critical thing I feel like this week that BYU can accomplish. Is it going to be easy? No, because guess what? Like I said, a lot of guys are nursing dings and dents. There's a lot of guys having to catch up on schoolwork. It's a critical week, obviously, in terms of giving us some extra time off as well. The one thing I know about this BYU football team, and they have shown it through 5 games, considering they started 5-0, is they do love ball. And that's something that Tyler Batty has said multiple times in press conferences. We got a lot of guys here who love ball. I think they're excited to get to work. They're excited to put in the time, but they're also excited to have some downtime as well. They'll probably have the weekend off with general conference for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I wouldn't be surprised on social media to see some of those photos pop up of those guys going up to general conference sessions over the weekend. But it is a critical time for BYU to get better here. You can't waste this week. I know that they won't, because Kalani Sitake has already kind of set the message post-game against Baylor. He said that, hey, show up Monday, we're getting back to work. He was dissatisfied, I think, with how BYU performed overall against Baylor, and I'm sure he'll have plenty for BYU to work on. But this is a critical week. It's not a week you just take it off and say, hey, okay, guys, hit the training room, talk to the physicians, and let's get you guys all healed up. No, there's still work to be done. There's schemes to be reworked. There's lineups to be changed. There's a whole philosophical element to this of, okay, 5 games in, teams expect us to do this. How do we approach it differently so they can't attack us the same way that other teams have? It's a big week for BYU, and I'm fully expecting they will take full advantage of getting that work in, because knowing what I know of this team and the work they've put in this offseason, they're not going to rest on their laurels. They're ecstatic to be 5-0. I can assure you of that. They're ecstatic to be ranked 17th in the country, and depending on how this weekend goes upcoming, they could be ranked 15th in the country when Arizona shows up at LaVell Edwards Stadium a week from Saturday. And that would be a really, really fun thing to have in BYU's back pocket. But I don't think this team is satisfied in any way, shape, or form with how they performed this year. Once again, they are a good team. They have found ways to win football games this year in spite of different circumstances that might have caused them to lose games in the past. Well, can they take it to another level? And that's what this week is going to be, I think, a critical test of what BYU's got in the tank. Can they go out there, really show what they're made of, use this week effectively, and then hit the ground running once again when they get back into action next week against Arizona? Time will tell, but I think this is a team. My read is they will be very intent on improving this week, and that should yield a better product, in theory, against Arizona a week from Saturday. All right, that'll do it for this Monday edition of the podcast. Thank you once again to all of you who tune in every single day. We love to call you guys everydayers, because you truly are the best and brightest out there, because you're getting the scoop on all things BYU have got for you guys every single day. But as always, no matter when, if this is your first or your last visit to the show, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. And as always, this has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.